Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by Nick Marisola. He is a self-dubbed Duda, an ordained Dudeist priest, and a singer-songwriter who has been writing songs since 2000 and singing all of his life. Nick brings a unique perspective and a unique style to his music, so we're going to be talking to him about that and everything that he's up to and all of the projects that he's working on. So, Nick, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's an honor, and I'm very grateful to be with you.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
All right. I'm 40 years old right now. I'm going to be turning 41 right around Thanksgiving. I'm a musician. I'm a lay Zen monk. I'm into shamanism. I'm kind of a do-it-yourself type of shaman. And those are just kind of my little personal specialties, but I take what I see of truth and righteousness, wherever, who, what, where, when, why, and how I find it in the universe. So I don't try to be too defined by any of those things. But yeah, I don't know. I try to use music as a tool to provide society with something, worthwhile and constructive, but entertaining at the same time, if possible.
Well, you tell everybody that you're a self-dubbed Duda and an ordained Dudeist priest. So explain to the listeners what that is.
All right. Well, the self-dubbed Duda thing is kind of my own personal spin on exactly how I would define myself in terms of, in Buddhism, there's different ways individuals can be defined, like bodhisattvas, Buddhas, monks, Zen masters, stuff like that. And I figured one of my favorite Buddhist figures is the laughing Buddha. And I figured, for me, maybe I could be like, if there can be a laughing Buddha, why can't there be a comedian Duda? So I was kind of trying to take myself lightly and acknowledge, in some ways, to me, the further along the path I've gotten, I have a song about it where the chorus is, could it be that a mystery's just part of how it be? Could that be why the more we see, the more blind we can be? And I think I was kind of trying to play my low cards out front with the whole Duda thing, considering, I don't know, just be casual and everyday and like I really am in real life, but still acknowledge that there's something going on. Cause I think there's a little bit of, a spark of something, just something cool in all throughout the universe. Different religions call it different things, like the Holy Spirit or Buddha nature or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. I was trying to pay homage to that with the name Duda too. And the ordained Dudeist priest thing, it's kind of a parody religion that actually legally matters in the state of Maine anyways. I had a couple friends who wanted me to be the minister at their wedding legally. And I found out that I could ordain myself as a Dudeist priest legally, and I could perform their wedding for them and sign off on it and everything. So it happened to be a perfect fit for me. And it's a parody religion based on the movie The Big Lebowski, and the main hero, who's kind of your completely unorthodox hero figure. He's like this guy. He's on welfare. He smokes marijuana. He drinks alcohol, White Russians in particular. And he's like a pacifist. And it's kind of inspired by some Zen and Taoist type of Eastern philosophies in terms of a lot of the the parts that have to do with Dudeism, anyways, that Dudeism takes from the movie. I don't know if you know anything about Taoism or Zen in particular, but there are some parallels.
Well, I can't say I do,
All
but
right.
why don't you start? Why don't you tell the listeners how you got started into music? I know you said you've been doing it all your life and writing since 2000, but how did you, what influenced you and got you started?
Well, I mean, I took all my elementary schools had music classes, just real basic ones. So when I was young, I kind of got the hang of some of that stuff, at least the basics. And I played cello actually for a year in fourth grade, but then we moved and the new school didn't have a cello program. But I was an art kid actually all growing up for the most part. That was one of the things I did best and one of the ways I invested a lot of time in anyways. And I started picking up guitar at about 18 years old. And I realized I like to write poetry. And if I combined all these things, I could write songs. And it's just a totally different format for expression than visual arts. I felt like I could in some ways say more and in some ways leave it up to the listener that much more, depending on how I did it. And it was just a really powerful tool for social change and justice and even social medicine in my kind of shamanistic perspective. So I decided I wanted to practice a lot, and I kept dropping out of art school and because I wanted to do music, but I play by ear. So, and I'm except for whatever basic lessons I took way back when, pretty much self taught in terms of all the instruments I play. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of blossomed from there. Took some classes with Berkeley online a while ago to really polish my production chops, if you will. And I just released an album called Alternative Phenomenon on 10/11/2022. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Well, speaking of that album, what was the inspiration behind the title of that album, Alternative Phenomenon?
It was kind of like I felt like the path that life had kind of led myself down, and even the paths I kept choosing out of my options a lot of times seemed to be the alternative phenomenon, whatever it may have been, and not maybe the one right that I don't know, almost it kind of like some of it had a real surreal kind of Wizard of Oz or maybe Alice in Wonderland type of matrixy vibe to it, where there's this like feeling throughout the process of spiritual awakening and walking the path, or whatever you want to call it, whatever your way of putting it is, following your heart, whatever. I yeah, it just there was this almost common theme of it wasn't the illusion that seemed to present itself that was the best part, or the the part you want to stick with or choose, and some of what seemed real was actually worse than what seemed worse. And so it was almost my way of commenting on that kind of thing, putting my own spin on some similar themed ideas and ideals.
Well, if somebody walked up to you and said, "Hey, Nick, what kind of music do you do? What style classification would your music be?" What would you tell them?
Oh man, that's always such a hard question for me to answer, but it can all right, I'll try a few different tactics. Genre wise, I would say it's kind of like indie, alternative, folk rock, singer songwriter stuff with influences from jazz, blues, funk, reggae, hip hop, and soul, and a little bit of world music influence. Um, but at the same time, I don't know. I've also heard one of my favorite descriptions that actually sums it up in some ways that fails to, as many as surprising as that may be with so many words that it could still fail to sum it up, but leave it to words sometimes, right? Anyways, my cousin once said it had a timeless original sound, which I thought was kind of cool because I do kind of go for a bit of a paradox like that where, hopefully you haven't heard anything quite like it before, but you could imagine someone listening to it, a million years from now too, or something.
Guerrilla production methods. Tell us about that saying and explain to us what that means.
All right. So sometimes I had this really cool teacher in Berkeley who taught us some of the interesting, almost like hacks to producing where the lo-fi method is actually preferable for the artistic integrity of the project somehow, or at least as a tool. And I thought that was really interesting because I had a lot of old recordings and some of them were even made in a mental institution as a patient, talking about basically how reality is part illusion. And it was almost my way of trying to turn what felt on borderline like a martyrdom or something, because I was sitting there trying to be the nicest guy I could be and seemed like everything was just going wrong for me. And circumstance and situation after another led me there because I was having like a spiritual awakening, and my psychologist and all my hippie friends and stuff thought I had gifts that were being misinterpreted as symptoms, but my psychiatrist wanted me on pills. So anyways, I wanted to make good use of my time while I was there. So I got permission to use this one little room, and it's like this completely empty room, and it has kind of a weird ambiance acoustically to it because it's totally bare except for a table and chair, and it's like a small square room which they tell you not to record in if it's not treated right production wise. But it almost gives it like a hauntingly intimate vibe when I mixed it into some other recordings with my modern current studio that is acoustically treated, and with my newly found, production capabilities, I wanted to make use of kind of this tragedy, this almost like bucking the system from the belly of the beast, and make that an actual part of the piece of art itself. And I thought that was really cool conceptually and as an artist. And it was kind of my little way of, instead of fighting back with violence against a system that may not have treated me the way I treated it or wanted to be treated, it was my way of trying to turn a tragedy into a triumph via art.
Okay. Well, you also chose to donate proceeds from your CD auction to the Shaolin Temple. Tell us why you chose that.
Oh, yeah. They are the original Zen temple. Nowadays, by a lot of people, they're more known for their martial arts. But they're actually the original Zen temple is how that the martial arts tradition even started at that temple. Started with the introduction of Zen Buddhism. But they're awesome. I don't know if anyone out there has ever heard of the show it was on TV a while ago, Stanley's Superhumans, but these Shaolin monks they train so hard and they are so righteous, and they can do things that are, just incredible feats of strength and toughness. And Stanley's show was called Stanley's Superhumans, and Stan Lee is the guy, I believe, from Marvel, is it? I think, and he came up with all these comic book characters, and so to make a show, he went around getting scientific data even on some of these people who can do things that your average person just can't hope to. And there were multiple shows with Shaolin monks doing, like, I saw a Shaolin monk apply over 200 pounds of force with a power drill to his own navel and temple, and all it did was chafe it, left it a tiny bit pink. So I was like, these guys are like living superheroes. So I the Shaolin Temple. I got in touch with someone there, and he asked me how I would like it to be used, and I said on meditation tools and medicine.
Okay, well, congratulations on that. Tell
Yeah.
us tell us about some of your biggest musical influences and your inspiration for writing your songs.
All right. Some of my biggest musical influences. Let's see. I was kind of raised on classic rock. And then when I started kind of reaching out to find my own music scene, a lot of it was the kind of 90s alternative scene, the grunge scene, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Sublime, stuff like that in particular. Some hip hop like Wu Tang. I got more into Wu Tang as I got older, even, but and hip hop too, as I discovered more of the underground because I was kind of disheartened by some of the trends in the 90s of pop culture that kind of cheapened the art form of music, in my opinion, with their money making approaches. But then I started getting into a lot of the hippie music, jam bands, jazz, Medeski, Martin and Wood, the Grateful Dead, Strange Folk. Let's see. I listened to some world music in college that really broadened my horizons on what was capable with these totally different sounding scales that other cultures use and stuff. It was kind of eye opening, made me want to experiment a little within my own system that I was comfortable with. And Yeah, nowadays I listen to a lot of stuff. A lot of the same old stuff is stuck with me the whole time. And in addition, some of my current favorites are like Nako and Medicine for the People, Trevor Hall, MC Yogi, um, yeah, Jack Johnson, Ben Harper, tons of people. I always G Love. I always feel like I can never list enough names because really there's so many incredible artists out there. It's really such a blessing to have such that we get to pick what we listen to nowadays. That's so cool. Back, if you think about it, back in the old days, whatever schmuck with a guitar or a lute and a voice came by whistling a song, you had to listen to whatever he was playing,
Absolutely. Well, tell us about, I know you said you had the alternative phenomenon out. You got any upcoming things that you're working on that people need to know about?
I'm working on my hip hop debut. Actually, I got the chance to buy the rights to a beat with a feature featuring Killer Priest from Wu Tang Clan, and I added some instrumentation, and I decided to give a little more a bit of a kind of emceeing myself a little bit type of experiment to try because I had tried it a couple times on some stuff, but nothing that ever got released in any professional capacity. So this will be my first kind of putting it out there. I like it so far. I'm excited about it. So that'll be coming out at some point. I'm still trying to get some female vocalists to help me finish it off. And I got a beatboxer I'm waiting on too, but should be cool.
Most definitely. Throw out your contact information, website, tell us social media where we can find you at and keep up with everything that you're doing.
All right. Yeah. If you want a one-stop shop for like pretty much most of my main stuff online, it's my official website is just meditativeanimal.com. That's meditative animal, all one word in the URL anyways, .com. I'm on Twitter. If you look up Meditative Animal, I got the little paw print logo with a heart in it. Let's see. I'm on YouTube. I got some lyric videos up right now. It's youtube.com/user/meditative animal again. And yeah, I don't know. I'm on all the major streaming services. So, feel free to use whatever you want and just look up Meditative Animal, maybe Alternative Phenomenon if you want to see the latest stuff.
All right. Well, close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe something that I forgot to touch on, or any final thoughts that you have for the listeners to close us out.
Oh, I think you did a great job. Final thoughts. Let's see. Well, you know, kind of crazy times we live in. I wish everybody out there much love and many blessings. And thanks for taking the time to hear me ramble.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to grace the listeners with your presence and letting us know about everything that you're up to. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Marisola, the meditative animal. Please be sure to follow, rate, review, share this episode, check out everything that he's up to. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed the show, please be sure to tell a friend. Mr. Meditative Animal, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.